lifetime where they may not ever become aware that their thoughts create their reality, that they're the co-creators. But we are specifically going through the shift and talking about the story of how you started your own salon.
Yes. Okay, so this is a really good story. I, had been an entrepreneur, obviously, the whole time I was doing hair. I built my business and was working behind the chair. And then when I moved to San Diego, like I was saying, I came here in 2008 and I started commuting back to Vegas because I had a full clientele there. So I actually commuted back to Vegas for 8 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was wild. I had a lot of really good clients and it was just it just felt like the right thing to do at that time. So then I started building a clientele here. And then at some point I was actually working at a salon in Little Italy. I was coming into the salon and I was like, I just don't really feeling the vibe here. Like it didn't feel super welcome. I didn't love the culture that was going on. So I was like, what if I just, open something small, like a few stations or something like that. So I started looking around downtown. Kind of always been a downtown girl, and I found this space right by it's like on Market and 8th or something, close to the gas lamp. Between
that's right
gas
by
lamp
where I live.
and East Village, yeah, like right by Bootlegger, if anyone is a San Diegan and knows that place. And so it was going to be, I think maybe 1,000, not even, like maybe like 600 square feet. It's going to be like 4 stations. And I thought, okay, like maybe I didn't want it to be that big, but sure. So I started like kind of planning for it to be 4 stations. How much would that cost? Whatever. I started doing the deal with this guy. I'm actually in Vegas at the time doing hair, and he had a call from him. He's like, hey, I just wanted to let you know that we decided to go with a man. And so
oh my gosh,
we are canceling your deal. And I was just like,
why would he even say that though? You know what I mean?
Well, exactly what was going on inside of him.
Who you, guy? Loser.
Yeah, I think he had some of his own stuff going on there.
Shadows.
And he missed out because, I think things turned out pretty well for me. So anyway, I was like, okay, bye. I was like literally upset for like, I don't know, 30 seconds. And I just immediately was like, everything is happening for me.
Yeah.
There's another opportunity. And it's like when the door closes, like we just have to trust that there's another door that's opening that's going to be greater and bigger for us. And so what it did though, it was so perfect because like I wasn't even sure if I wanted to open a salon. I knew I wanted my own space, so I was doing that. So I was like, okay, 4 stations. And then I started really getting more intentional. And like I started walking around downtown. What area do I want? What looks good to me? So I walked by this salon that I had seen many times on the street. It was beautiful. It had this beautiful brick wall. It was this big space. It was like 5,000 square feet. And it was empty. And it had been like abandoned. And I was like, wow, interesting. I'm like, okay, like I don't want this whole thing, but like what if I just call? This has been a thing throughout my life. I just ask for what I want. And so I was like, what if I just call and ask them if they'll give me just like a little section in the front? Why not? So I call and I do my spiel. I'm like, hey, really want to open a salon. I just want like a small space. Like, are you willing to do this just in the front? And they said, absolutely. Let's chat.
Oh my gosh.
So we start doing the deal. I think now it's going to be like 1,000 square feet. And I'm like, okay, 1,000 square feet. That's like bigger than I wanted, but okay. Like can make it work. I didn't really have a lot of money at the time. I was making good money, but I wasn't really being good at saving. And I had just gone through a divorce and like all this stuff. So halfway through the deal, they're like, actually, we're not going to be able to just give you that front space. Like we need you to take this whole side, and it's like 2,500 square feet.
Holy guacamole.
And I was like, okay. So I remember just being in that moment and being like, yes. There was like no other option. Like I could feel it in my full body. Like I looked at the space. It was all built out. It was beautiful. Like everything I needed was there. And all of a sudden, like the graphic designer I met the next day. Like the other person, whoever I needed was just showing up. I remember I needed to get my establishment license, which normally takes like 12 plus weeks. I sent it in. I kept calling this lady. I'm like, hi, it's me again. And within she's like, you know what? I don't know why this is happening, but your application's on my desk. I'm just going to submit it. 2 weeks later, I got my establishment license.
Oh my God.
Like things like that. It was like, I often say it was the most divine thing. Like it was so divinely orchestrated. There was like nothing I could do to like not say yes. And so even though I honestly had no idea what I was doing, I think I had $10,000 to be honest to do this thing. And I was like, well, we're making it happen. I had a lot of people looking at me like, what are you doing? And I'm like, what do you mean? What am I doing? Like, why wouldn't I do it? I'm going to regret it otherwise. So I just kept trusting myself. I cried for probably 6 months straight because I had no idea how I was going to like pay the rent and like do all of that. But I remember it was like right around the 6 month mark, we broke even, and it was like, then it just progressively grew from that place. So that's kind of the story of how that started.
Oh, it's so good. Oh, this is so like divine of what you just shared too. And I think a lot of people are, again, going through that shift right now where they're starting the business and they're like, I don't know. And they're like, okay, this is what I feel safe with.
Yeah.
This is what I can do. And then Source comes along and says, nope, you're made for so much more. And I think the way that you explained the story and the way that it all planned out was a perfect example of it. Even going back to the guy who said,
he was
nope.
a gift.
Yeah.
He was a gift because it all helped me prepare myself for, if I would have went right into the 2,500 square feet, I think it would have maybe blown my system a little bit. It just wasn't time. It wasn't time yet. Right. So it's like, what if we were able to just trust that we're so supported in every single way? Every single thing that's happening is happening for us. We just maybe don't know why or how or when, but that's our opportunity for growth, because it's just really the ego that needs to know why and how and when, just so we can feel safe, right? Whatever safe means. The reality is we're already safe.
Yeah.
We're already safe. And we can just trust that. That's when we get to actually receive, as you talk about with money and manifestation, we get to receive the infinite possibilities that are available for us.
And I love that part in your story where you're talking about where you're going downtown and looking at spaces and you just felt a space that felt called to you. One, I feel like a lot of people do that with their homes, but also with the business. And I was doing that the other day. I see abandoned places all the time, and I'm always the first person to be like, ding, ding, that's what I'm put there. And then it really dawned on me the other day. I was like, whoa, like not everybody is programmed like that. Not everybody can walk into a space and be like, oh, that's what I would do, have the vision. And so the fact that you're bringing this up right now was like, whoa. So for those of you who do have the vision and you can walk into a place and say, hey, this is what it's going to look like, and we can do this and that, like that's huge and a huge gift. So thank you for even stepping into that on your own, right? And allowing that process. And then allowing yourself to go through that push just a little bit further. You are possible. I mean, it is possible. You can do this. And then just watching how everything played out. I also want to go back to you talking about those times where you're like, okay, I know this is going to work out. We're not breaking even yet, but I know that it will. What were some of the biggest fears, right? Obviously not being able to pay the rent is huge, but what were some other big fears that came to the surface? Like what was really at stake if you lost it?
Exactly. And it's the story around failure, right? It's the story around doing something wrong and messing up and not being good enough and feeling stupid or embarrassed. And I think that's a gift that we all get to navigate in this life. So I think one of our biggest fears as the human species, right? Like, what if we mess up? What if we fail? And so, but I often like to remind myself, like, what does failure mean? Like, what is the meaning around it? Is it actually real? Like my dad always used to say, like, you're either winning or you're learning. You're winning or you're learning. And if you can let go of the meanings you've given to these feelings, the feeling of failure, the feeling of rejection, the feeling of alone, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be a big deal. It's just a feeling, right? So I had to continue to remind myself of that. I owned the salon for 5.5 years, and it was one of the most transformational times in my life. You can't pay for this type of education, this type of life experience, the things that you can learn by having to navigate your fears and step into the uncomfortable every single day, have uncomfortable conversations with people, set boundaries. Like, I became such an amazing leader, not because I just like naturally knew exactly what to do, because I was willing to put myself out there. I was willing to have uncomfortable conversations. I was willing to work on myself and continue to show up as my best self. And that's really what was a big part of my transformation and growth. So.
Yes. Which kind of leads into another question I gathered from one of your previous episodes that you did, and was really talking about how investing in yourself and you following your path of least resistance was helping somebody else, like somebody was manifesting you. Would you love to touch on that, of again how us maybe making that investment, like you getting that spot, was somebody else's manifestation or X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you know, again, if we're all just trusting in our heart, what our heart is guiding us to, right? Like you're going to end up connecting with the people that you're meant to connect with, whatever that is. So whether that's investing in yourself, whether that's, you know, taking a leap and starting a business, or taking a leap and leaving your 9 to 5, or taking a leap and leaving that relationship, or taking a leap and jumping into that new relationship, whatever it is, if we could just trust ourselves and then know from there, yeah, other people will be impacted based off of our ability to just follow our heart. And I think the more that we're able to do that, the more that we can actually come together with the connections that are, I think they're always divine, but at our highest divine plan, which is what's ultimately going to help expand us more and open us up more to, you know, learn, grow, evolve, transform, but also be able to like ultimately be really present and enjoy this human experience.
Ooh, that's huge.
Yeah, because that's a part of it too. Like we're here to grow. I do believe that our purpose is here for the purpose of our soul's growth. But I do think there's a beautiful opportunity to really embrace the human experience, which is, I mean, love. I mean, think about love. It's the most magical, expansive, amazing feeling that you can feel as a human. You know, and so to be able to like fully embrace that and to fully feel that, and in order to do that at the level that I'm speaking about, you have to also be willing to feel the uncomfortable feelings. But when you're willing to do that, you'll also realize that they're not here to hurt you. They're not who you are. They don't really have any meaning. They can just move through. And then now you're so much more open and receptive to all the beautiful things that life has to offer.
Oh, yes. I had this huge download the other day, and I think you'd appreciate this. Somebody was telling me about some guy that they're talking to, and they're like, yeah, but, you know, I just don't want him to know I'm interested. I don't want him to know, you know, that I really do like him. And then it dawned on me, it's like you're only receiving as much as you're allowing yourself to feel safe receiving. And I was like, oh, and then it like, not only for like relationships, but I think, again, just experiences in life, and touching on what you just said is that a lot of people, they get what they've been asking for, and they don't feel they're trying to fill a void, right? We don't want money, we want the way that we think it's going to make us feel.
Absolutely.
And somebody said the other day is that the guy who has the big house and the nice cars is the one who has the hardest time enjoying it. And it kind of just touches on what you said. So what are some things that you've personally done to really just like be in the moment and be present and receive all of the things you have manifested?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So for me, it starts with the inner, deeper work, right? So this goes a lot deeper because I feel like understanding first and foremost what your trauma is, what your ego stories are, what your limiting beliefs are, is simply just for the purpose of putting light on what's inevitably underneath the surface, and it's coming up, right? So we talk about having, let's say, a really nice car, big engagement ring, or a really hot guy. All of a sudden, $1 million is in your account, right? You're only going to be able to receive based off of your level of worthiness. And if you don't understand your trauma, and you don't understand your stories and how your ego works and your limiting beliefs, your capacity to receive is going to be more protected and shut down. So for me, where my transformation really started was after my second divorce, where it ended very abruptly. I was sort of on my knees on the ground, like I think 36 or 7 at the time, 37, I think, just turning 37. And I'm like, how is this happening? I'm divorced twice. Like, how did I get myself in this situation? God, I saw the red flags and I didn't pay attention. And why didn't I pay attention? What was going on, you know? And so I had an opportunity at that time to really go down the victim route. I mean, I had a lot of content, a list of things as to why I could be a really, really good victim in that situation. And it finally occurred to me, I was like, you know what? That's not going to work anymore. This is about me removing that and finally starting to take responsibility for myself. Why did I say yes to this? Why did I continue to say yes to this? What was going on with inside of me? What parts of me were looking for outward validation? And so as I started asking these questions, I got to look at my trauma deeper. And of course, as we talked about already, I've been doing this work for the majority of my life. But what I realized is that I understood it at an intellectual level. I could write a book about this at probably 25. But that wasn't the point. Until we learn how to somatically feel, get into our body, like understand these things, we're still sort of blocked. And so I started feeling more, really looking at myself, dealing with my trauma, with my limiting beliefs, feeling that shame, feeling that guilt, feeling the abandonment, the rejection, the betrayal, the disregard, the sadness, the loneliness, and really allowing myself to be in it. Because why I made that choice was because I was still running from it. Why do we make choices in our life that later on we're like, what was I thinking? The red flags were there. It's because you were running from something. You're running from simply feeling something. So the more that I put light on my trauma, on my stuff, and started actually processing my emotions, what happened is I started getting into my body more. I started connecting more to my heart, to my intuition. And then I started receiving what I like to call divine truths. Truth that I believe we all have access to. So a big part of my work is helping women remember who they are. And what I mean by that is that I believe you already know. You already know deep down inside that you're safe, that you're loved, that you're powerful beyond measure, that you're magnificent, that you're worthy, that you're enough today. Not when you go make more money, not when you meet the guy, not when you lose 5 pounds. No, right now you are enough. And so once you start to remember that, all of a sudden you're like, okay, and now everything starts to open up. Like your possibilities start to open up, right? Whereas typically if you're coming from trauma or ego, you're more like tunnel visioned, and you can only see these like 2 options in front of you, and that's why you feel like a victim. We're not really victims. If you just remove it and we can look around, there's so many infinite possibilities. So through that, I started, really being consistent with journaling, really being consistent with meditation, with gratitude, with affirmations, with power statements, with breathing, with slowing down, understanding at a deeper level that slower is ultimately faster.
Wow.
100%.
Chill.
Yeah. And that there was nothing more important than this self-care, than this personal work. And so now it's a non-negotiable for me. It's a big part of the foundation of what I teach. You wake up, you set an intention for your day. You start by connecting to yourself, going into meditation, journaling what you're feeling. Pretty much every single course, program, group program, workshop, speaking, whatever it is, has come from channeling through meditation and through my ability to journal what my stuff is. So I have now learned how to process and navigate the ego stories that come through, what the feelings are underneath the surface, so I know how to navigate anything. So what happens is when you become skilled at learning how to navigate your own trauma, your own ego, your own stories, just look at your emotions like, wow, I just feel uncomfortable right now, or I just feel rejected right now. It's like, cool, now I can actually move. See, now you're back in your power. From that place, you can start to make heart-centered choices. And heart-centered choices equal heart-centered results. So that's how things started to open up for me. And then more things start to come. But the difference is now things are coming, but I'm actually feeling worthy of them. People are, acknowledging me, and I'm able to actually receive it. This is where things really started to shift, but it really came from me making that choice to make me the priority. Make me the priority, make self-care the priority, make living in my heart the priority, and being responsible for myself and my own emotions, my own triggers. And so lastly, a thing I'll say about this is like, if you knew how to catch when your trauma shows up, how to catch when your triggers show up, how to catch when your ego is at play, how to catch your limiting beliefs, to get to the core of what's underneath your emotions that have nothing to do with anyone else, and get back into your power, and you could navigate anything, what would you do next? There would be no fear. There's like, now it's like, yeah, let me be open. So in dating, it's like, if you're dating or even in your relationship, what if you could just let your heart be open so that you can actually receive? People talk about, I actually have a dating program, and people talk about how they want true love and they want divine partnership. And it's like, okay, cool. How open are you? How willing are you to be vulnerable? How willing are you to be seen? That doesn't exist without that, right? If your heart is blocked, then you are blocked. And so that's kind of what starts to shift everything. That's the core of everything that I teach. And I believe it's the most important thing on our to-do list we will ever have.
So good. Straight channeling. I'm like, oh, my heart is opening, and like just realizing so many things that like I feel like every time that I talk to you, even when I first met you, I felt like I didn't know anything about what we're talking about right now. You know what I mean? I just felt like when you said it, it just was a whole new vibration. And when we were talking, just a rundown of how we met. So it was so divine because Jess Bergio has been in the Vortex forever, and she just had an opening, and you were standing at a table, and like it was funny because that was the first place, you know, when you walk into a room and you don't know anybody else, like, ooh, and I just was directed towards you, and I didn't say any. I mean, I maybe said hi or whatever, but I just kept listening to what you and someone else were talking about, and it's just like, it's just like, just feels like Source talks to you through other people, and like. You could tell that you not only speak your truth, but you live it. And you not only see that but from what people say, but how they physically feel. Yeah. And I think that's why I was directed towards you and just really hearing from what your conversation was. And I want to go back to talking about avoiding a feeling or that we're trying, you know, avoiding or doing things so that we don't physically have to feel certain emotions. Yeah. And that as a message that's coming up not only for myself, but like people within our community is just feel the emotion you're trying to avoid. So going back to the divorce, what do you think were some of the emotions that you were trying to avoid?
My biggest fear was being abandoned. And so I manifested a guy who abandoned me twice within a couple years' time. Yeah. It was perfect. I was literally, so this is what happens. What we focus on expands, as your listeners know, because you teach that, right? If you have a fear that you're running from, you're basically, and you're not looking at it, you're basically emanating it out. So let's say, you know, for me, it was being abandoned. I'm sure maybe some of your listeners have a similar fear. So what happens is when you're not dealing with it, you're basically emanating out, abandon me, abandon me, abandon me. Because that's how it emanates out on a frequency level. And so basically, even though the experience was, I mean, really hard. It was the hardest thing I've ever gone through, and I had a really tough childhood. But it was a gift. It was a gift because for whatever the reason, my resistance level was pretty high and didn't just want to look at the part of me that felt scared of being abandoned, scared of being alone, scared of feeling rejected, because this was all childhood trauma, and who knows, potentially for those of you who believe in past lives, I think that's definitely, I think I came in with, I'm an old soul, so I came in with a mission this life to heal some things. And so I also believe this was a soul contract with this person. It was a karmic relationship for us to clear some things. And so I'm so grateful for it now, but I was running from that. I was running from being alone, being rejected, feeling abandoned. And so instead of just facing it, I attracted this experience, and there was so many things along the way that showed me like, hey, pay attention. But because of that fear, and I didn't want to be alone, and I genuinely loved him, I do think we were deeply, deeply connected. And I think sometimes as humans, especially someone like myself, I need to kind of go all the way sometimes to get it for myself, right? And so I needed to marry him. I needed to go all the way in so there wouldn't be any regret or wonder. I've never felt so resolved with a relationship than I do with this one. All of them now, but because I went all the way in. I let myself go all the way in and let myself have the full experience. So those were the emotions that I was running from. I also wasn't making myself a priority. It wasn't loving myself to the capacity that I had. I think I was loving myself more than I ever had because I had been working on myself. It's actually interesting because I think back, I've said this to a lot of my girls. I think back to a certain time before we got married, in between our engagement and getting married, and I thought, gosh, I'm so happy. Like, I found my person. I would like pray at night and gratitude. I finally found my person. And that went on for a little while until things kind of shifted. But I look back at it now and I'm like, wow, like I remember genuinely feeling that way. But when I think about myself today and who I am today and how I feel about myself today, like that would not be something I would say yes to. And it's all based off how I feel about myself. So we say yes to things based on how we feel about ourselves and based on what's going on with inside of us. And so the more you are willing to, again, face the uncomfortable feelings, you have to be willing to feel them in order to be free of them.
Oh, yeah. Yes. So good.
It's a big one, right? And I know there's a story like, oh my God, what if I feel this feeling? I'm going to blow up. It's like, no, it's just a feeling. Like if you think about it, can it touch you? Can it even touch your body? No, it's just uncomfortable. Have you ever felt a feeling 24/7? No, They come and they go. The good ones and the bad ones, they always will. And we're human. We're meant to be feelers. So what we ought to be doing is becoming skilled at becoming a feeler. But instead, our society has really taken us on a different path, which I am so grateful that we're starting to, like, even us just having this conversation right now, I'm so grateful for. And so the more that we're willing to just look at what's underneath the surface, and then start to make ourself a priority. When you truly fall, I'll say, back in love with yourself, and you see yourself, and you really see, like, the moments that I had through my growth when I'm, like, looking at myself in the mirror and I'm like, wow, like, you're a freaking badass. Like, have you been this way the whole time? And it's like, oh yeah, you have. I just didn't see you. I just couldn't see you. I was looking outwardly for validation. I was looking outwardly in all these things versus going inward and looking at myself and realizing I had it all. I had access to it all within inside of myself. And so when you really, truly love yourself and you really, truly make yourself a priority and you're your own best friend, the choices you make will be just completely different. Because you're making the choice based on the fact that you love yourself. So there's just certain things that are just a no. Moving forward. Or they're a yes, depending on how it feels to you. And there's no right or wrong here. There's no exact science to this, but you get to trust you. And I think there's so much freedom in that.
Oh, so many good things that I want to touch on. And I want to go back to the feeling of abandonment. Yeah. And I feel like you see this a lot in money patterns too, right? Because, like, your relationship with money is the same way that you have the rest of your relationships in your life. For me personally, it started with money, and then I started to be open and receptive. But, like, okay, let me look at all the other areas of my life. And I kept working on money mindset because it made me feel safe, and it was something I knew and it's familiar. And I feel like that's why we also connected too, because even when you're asking me questions, I'm just simply like what I was doing and how open I feel. And I was just like, oh my gosh. It's like it just brings awareness. And I think Source, again, talks to us through other people where they connect you with somebody who has not only been through the experience, but can really just listen and hold that space. So going back to the abandonment, like, again, that feeling of like, oh my gosh, I don't want to feel that emotion, so let me stay safe. And I think a lot of people do that not only in relationships, but in maybe their workplace. Absolutely. Or maybe even their business. Like, it took a lot for you to release the beauty industry to step into that, which is the next topic I'd like to get into. So which is when you're going through that divorce and you're becoming conscious and aware, and you really got out of that victim mentality. So I just want to commend you for that. Because there's so many people who are in that phase right now who are listening to this. And something interesting that really stuck out to me when I was listening to another podcast episode is that you said you took a couple months off and you're like, okay, I'm healing, I'm going out and working on myself. And then when you got back, you're like, all right, I'm good to go. And then you weren't. Can we touch on that a little bit? Because it's been coming to the surface for so many people.
Really quick, I did want to touch on one thing with this victim mentality thing. Just for those of you listening, if you feel like you're in a victim mentality, just know that you have the power at any moment to choose to become a victor. It really is that simple. The second you recognize it's happening, it's like, nope, this doesn't work for me. And you flip the mentality, you come back into your body, and it's like, what else is possible here? And how can I show up for me? So that can literally be that simple if you simply are willing to let it. In light of your question, so between, I think it was like September of 2017, I got engaged. I sold my business in November of 2017. I got married in March of 2018 and started the divorce process in August of 2018. So within a year, all of those things happened. And so after I sold my business, and so what kind of started happening with the business is at some point I was like, okay, what am I the most passionate about here? Like, what do I really want? And that's when I realized that, like, I had been coaching my clients for years. I had been created a full coaching thing for all of my employees. But what I really was passionate about was helping women remember who they were, step into their power, love themselves, honor themselves. And so I was like, okay, what if I did this intentionally? People actually wanted the support versus like I was kind of chasing my employees around trying to help them or my clients. And they're just like, oh, I don't know. And so that's when I decided to sell. And I was told by a broker and my business coach at the time that I would never be able to sell my business, that I would never make any money. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, think I agree with that. So I was like, well, you don't know who I am. You don't know what I've created. That's fine. So I just got really clear on what I wanted. To me, this was a part of my legacy. And I wanted to pass it on. So I got really clear what I wanted. Within a month and a half, manifested 2 young women who paid close to asking price for my business. And I was able to sell it, release it, and move on. And what's interesting is when I sold it, I kept thinking like, gosh, is there going to be a moment where I regret this? Because it was like everything to me. Like I was there on the weekends. I was like, it was like a thing I was always about, even though I had been, backpedaling out of that for a while. But I never once regretted it to this day. It's been almost 5 years. But what happened that I didn't expect is I didn't have a to-do list anymore. And so what happened was I was intentionally going to take some time off. I just gotten engaged. I was going to start planning my wedding but there was no to-do list. There was nobody calling me. There was nobody needing me. And that is what really started to bring up the stuff, like big time, because if I wasn't productive, who was I?
Wow.
If I didn't have all these things to do, then what did that mean about me? And even though I had some money in the bank and whatever, that didn't matter. That wasn't enough. I needed to be making more money. And I need, so I had to put like go to the beach on my list, like go watch a movie on my list, because I'd be going to Target, back to organizing the closet, like just doing. And I didn't realize like how much I had been doing for so long. And I mean, if you can kind of pick up on where I'm going with this, like the doing, which was what was keeping me unconscious to just simply seeing what was right in front of me, which was that I was about to marry somebody that I really had no business marrying. And this happens for people all the time, whether it's a marriage or whatever it is, a business decision or an investment or whatever it is, right? And I think it's important to understand that whatever decisions you make are all perfect, because you're ultimately going to be learning from them. But at some point when you actually learn your lessons, it's like, ooh, maybe I don't have to learn through pain anymore. Maybe I can start to learn through love. And that was a commitment that I started making to myself. And so, but after I sold the salon, took the break, then I went through the divorce. Well, then I got married, then I went through the divorce, and I was like, okay, now I'm ready to go. And then it was kind of crickets for a little bit, which then brought up
Sorry, I did.
like I had a few clients or whatever, and then I'm like, okay, cool, I'm like ready to go. But I actually wasn't. There was more work to do. There was more healing to do. So that was another level of my transformation of trust, of being in the moment, of surrendering, of feeling uncomfortable, and just trusting that like there wasn't anything else I needed to do other than let myself have the experience. And then at some point what happened was, because I did that, because I kept trusting, I kept surrendering, I kept doing the deeper work, it just dialed in. And all of a sudden I had all these clients. All of a sudden I channeled an entire group program. I launched that. I ended up 2020 was the best year I've ever had in like my entire career. But it was because it was like inspired action. It was divinely timed versus the forcing. So I talk a lot about inspired action versus forced action. Done a lot of forced action in my life. Turns out it doesn't end well. So I'm pretty committed to myself now that, inspired action is what I'm willing to do. And as soon as it becomes forced, I got to pull back and just slow it down, because where is it leading? I talked about heart-centered creation equaling heart-centered results. Well, ego-based creation, lack, fear, forced creation equals lack, fear, ego-based results. And so it's really, really simple. If you're looking at your result and you don't like them, just check your come from. Is it your ego? Is it your fear? Is it forcing? I gotta go, I gotta do, because I'm so freaking uncomfortable and I can't even just sit here and feel, right? If that's your come from, there's nothing wrong with it, but that might be why your life is more chaotic or dramatic or overwhelming, or you're hitting the same blocks or walls or whatever the case might be. What's cool about what I'm saying is that you have the choice to switch this around at any time. You are really powerful. And when you go into the ego, you've just given your power away. But the cool thing is it's your power, which means you can take it back whenever you want. And you can start getting into your heart and creating from your heart space. And that's when not only do you get to get clear on what your heart truly wants, right? Not what society thinks you should have, or your family thinks you should have, or your spouse thinks you should have. No, what you want, right? Get clear on what that is and actually be able to manifest it, and actually be able to receive it, and then ultimately be able to sustain it, meaning that you're content with what you have today. We're human. We're always going to want to manifest more. I'm all about manifesting. But what about today? Because we're only promised this moment anyway. We only have this present moment, right? When you manifest from that place, you're actually just content knowing, yeah, I got more to do, but I'm so freaking happy today. I'm so grateful today. And that's enough for me. Versus from the ego's perspective, when you're manifesting, typically two things happen. One, you get the manifestation and you don't feel good enough, so you sabotage it, right? It's like, nope. And of course, you're not doing this consciously. You might realize it after. Or it's never enough. I want a bigger ring. I want a bigger house, a nicer car. I want more money. I want more money. I want more and more and more. And again, there's nothing wrong with desiring more. An up level is a beautiful thing. It's just, where is your come from? Because if it's from your ego, if it's from fear, if it's from trying to protect yourself from feeling all these feelings, it will never be enough. Or it'll always cycle around. Versus like, if you do this inner work that I'm talking about, come back to your heart and create from that place, I'm telling you, it changes everything. Because now you can actually just be grateful for the things that you have today, which means you get to actually live your life versus waking up every 5 years going, oh my gosh, what did I just do for the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? I wasn't even conscious. Because when you're creating from your ego, you're not conscious. When you're creating from your heart, you're conscious.
Oh, so good. You know what's funny is that when I do these interviews is that I try to pick and pull some things and like, okay, well, I want to come back to that, or I want to touch on that. But when I'm talking to you, it's like my brain is so present, you know? And I know we were talking about aliens earlier, but but it really is. I just feel like there's a different type of connection. Yeah. And I want to thank you for straight up channeling and sharing these messages, because I know that it's going to resonate with whoever's listening to it right now. I love that you touched on, again, working out of scarcity, trying to avoid the things that are happening in our reality. And I really, really resonated with you, what you said about like having something on the to-do list. And I'm going through that shift right now because my team, I'm getting a new team in New York, and I was like, okay, I'm going to take a month off. And even like that to me is like so huge, so big. And I didn't understand why, but I feel like when you said that, it really clicked. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, who's going to need me? What's going to come up if I'm just being? And that really, really resonates. So thank you for sharing that. Of course. I love, love, love that you teach people how to distinguish ego from intuition and forcing opposed to allowing. So what are some of the ways that you are working with female entrepreneurs right now and really teaching them those fundamentals?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways. I do one-on-one coaching. I have some group programs. I have a dating program right now that I'm doing.
Cool.
It's actually really fun. It was channeled last fall. I was like, oh, I'm creating a dating program. I'm not a dating coach, but there's so much that was coming through to share, and it's been beautiful. We're finishing that up, so I'll be launching that again in the fall for those who are ready to kind of call in their person. So I do one-on-one. I do group programs. I have another program where I go deeper into how to navigate the ego and the heart, how to process your emotions and all of those things. I have a couple of courses. And then right now I have a membership. It's called the Heart-Centered Collective Membership. And the purpose of this membership was also channeled was to help people be accountable. So I talk to people all the time about self-care and making yourself a priority and journaling, meditating, breathing, all these things. They're like, oh, I know I should do it, but like, I don't have any accountability. And maybe they're not able to afford a one-on-one or a group program or whatever that is. So I wanted to create an offer that was affordable for people to help them with the support and the resources that they need to simply just practice self-care daily, to have that accountability, to make yourself a priority, to love yourself, to show up for yourself, to just do those things that we know make us feel better after. All of that, when you make the choice to daily, journal, meditate, gratitude, breathe, set an intention, power statements, all these types of things, what it does is it gets us into our heart. And so, again, bringing it back to, my mission is to help as many, I'll say women, but ultimately it's people, live from a heart-centered place, because I truly believe from a heart-centered place, anything that you want in your life, anything you want at all is possible. I also truly believe when more of us are living from a heart-centered place, that is what's going to heal the world. So this is a big, very special mission for me. And so this membership, what it does is it just provides the support, the accountability, the community to help you stay accountable to you. That's all, right? So we do a monthly call. There's a monthly theme. I channel on the calls. I do live coaching on the calls. There's a ton of support there, because what happens is anyone who's listening to this right now be like, wow, this feels so good, right? Because you're in your heart. What happened is, one of my gifts is to help you all drop into your heart, which is beautiful. But give it an hour, a day, a week, you might fall back into the ego, right? And so what these calls do is they help bring you back present so that you can really live in your heart in more moments throughout your day. And then we also have daily prompts. So imagine waking up and there's an email every single day with an affirmation, with a prompt, with some inspiration. Again, holding you accountable just to simply show up for you. Stay in your heart. Are you breathing? Where are you creating from right now? We are creating in every single moment. And the reality is, we're either creating from our ego or our heart. So we have to get clear on this. You know, where do you want to be creating from? Where do you want your results to be? So this whole piece is around having you be more in your heart so you can have more heart-centered results. So it's a beautiful membership. It's only $88 to join.
88.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying the price point too, because I just love, like, a lot of times people are like, well, I don't know how much it is, and then they're like, boom, there's the price right there.
Yeah. It's only $88 to join. It's a 3-month commitment, because there has to be a commitment there, right? And to keep you in, so you can get the result. And then it's month to month after that, which our goal is to keep people in. Our goal is to be adding enough value that you are, you know, you want to stay a part of this community. So I'm really, really excited about it. The women who are in it already are just receiving a ton of support. So yeah, for anyone who's interested, I'd love for you all to join. I know there'll be a link.
In the show notes.
In the show notes. You can also reach out to me directly too, if you have any questions. So
yes. Okay, I want to touch on intuitive action. You were just talking about intuitive action, and you know, even just this topic alone, sometimes I forget how much of a tool that is to know the difference.
Yeah.
And now we're in a place, especially me right now, and I noticed that first with myself and then people in my vortex, is that, like, my past versions of myself are coming up so strong. And even with the videographer, remember, I was like, well, I don't know if we should do it. I'm like, you know, and then I was like, wait, oh my gosh, I'm literally going to past versions of myself. And I felt like the intentions with every action are, like, so important right now. Yeah. So for those of you who are listening to this right now and you really resonate with Randi and all the messages that she shared with us today, and you are excited and motivated about this, please, please, please take intuitive action. A lot of times when you have enough time or you don't have someone holding you accountable, we go back to those past versions, right? Yeah. Nobody's there to tell you that, well, it's not a big deal if you don't do it. But really, it's just building that trust with yourself. So for those of you, the first person, actually, what we discussed is that the first person to take intuitive action on this membership, I will do a free call for you. Doing fireworks! Yeah, and then that's just my way of rewarding you for taking that intuitive action and really allowing yourself to receive all of the abundance and support that is here for you. So again, Randi, I'm so grateful. If people want to reach out to you after this episode and just share with you some things that you touched on that really resonated with them, where is the best place that they can find you? Yeah,
I would say Instagram. So just Randi Halaway on Instagram. I'm sure that'll be in the show notes as well. And my website's randihalaway.com. You can email me at randi@randihalaway.com. But I am so, welcome to any questions you guys have, and yeah, just happy to connect, and so grateful to be here and to share this time with you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for stepping in your power. Thank you for allowing me to share your story. And for everybody listening right now, make sure that you tag her on Instagram, message her. I know a lot of times people think, well, everybody's doing it and they're probably never going to read the message. We read the messages. We read them.
Yes. Definitely tag us and message us for sure.
So again, thank you guys for tuning in today's episode. This is our last big shebang, and I wouldn't have done it any other way.
Yes, I get chills. So beautiful.
And we will see you guys on our next season. Bye.